Since then, the place had fallen off until it really wasn't worth the trouble for the field worker to stop there. It was just too small. Sometimes the sisters didn't have $50 for their day's take, but she knew if she brought up the matter to Red, he'd just say every little bit counts. This was the first time Shirley had brought Dolores to this stop. She glanced out of the corner of her eye to see how the slim, brown-skinned young woman was taking it. It was really a change from the other homes they went to. There was a look of total surprise and fright on Dolores's face at the sight of the horde of roaches running wild on the walls of the front room. "Where the hell is Auntie Dee?" Shirley asked sharply. She didn't want to stay in the house for any length of time if it could be avoided. The roaches didn't frighten Shirley, but she didn't like the thought of one of them falling on her. It made her flesh crawl. "Auntie Dee is the one who picks up the numbers in the neighborhood," Shirley explained to Dolores. "She takes care of all the work. This poor thing here ain't too much help. She don't understand too much other than the Bible. She'll talk you to death about that, but nothing else." "Have a seat. Have a seat," the old woman yelled in a shrill voice, waving the women towards a dilapidated couch that was covered by a sheet and a blanket. Before Shirley could warn her, Dolores started to sit down. A mouse ran from under the couch. Dolores screamed and jumped on top of the couch. There was no way Shirley could stop the flow of laughter that was taking control of her. She bent over and laughed until tears rolled down her face. Dolores never took her eyes off the mouse. She watched the rodent go under the huge old-fashioned china cabinet that stood against the wall. Little Jesus, the old woman scolded as she banged on the china cabinet. "You bad thing, you, scaring the woman like that." Now, Auntie," Shirley interrupted, "that ain't necessary you taking on like that. It was my fault for not telling Dolores that you kept a few pet mice and rats around." At the mention of rats, Dolores's eyebrows shot up, and she glanced around nervously. She started to say something, but the sound of a harsh voice coming from behind a curtain leading into the kitchen stopped her. "Y'all have to keep that fuss down out there if you expect me to ever finish writing up these here figures." "Is that you, Auntie Dee?" Shirley asked, knowing all along it was the woman she was looking for. "Of course it is, child. Who'd you expect it to be? Maybe Miss World, or somebody like that," the woman behind the curtain yelled sharply. Before Shirley could stop her, Dolores was up and heading for the kitchen. Possibly because of her fear of rats, she didn't wait for Shirley to lead the way. Shirley followed the younger woman, even though she had never gone any farther than the front room. Her curiosity was aroused. The elderly woman sitting at the kitchen table looked up in surprise as the two women came barging in. But the person who was really surprised was Dolores, as she stopped and stared open-mouthed at the old woman in front of her. She was utterly unlike any woman Dolores had ever seen. The impact of her presence was almost tactile in the silence that greeted their unwelcome entry. The old woman was as black as her sister. Neither woman had that rich nightshade velvety blackness that had its own sable beauty. Instead, the woman sitting in front of them had a gray-black shade with a deeply purple tinge about her lips. Her face was a mass of wrinkles that made her seem immensely old, but her eyes were the feature that held them. There was an evil glare in the pinpoint pupils, an undeniable quality of evil that could not be hidden. "Well?" the old woman asked sharply in that husky voice that seemed to come from the emptiness of a deep well. This was not the first time Shirley had met Auntie Dee. Ever since the death of her brother, Auntie Dee had been handling the numbers route, so Shirley was acquainted with the woman. But for some reason, the sight of Auntie Dee always gave Shirley a sense of fear. The old woman had never done anything to her, but the feeling was there just the same. "Y'all could have waited just as well in the front room for me to finish adding up these here figures instead of running all over my house this ways," Auntie Dee stated harshly. Shirley had no doubt that the woman could see she was blushing. For something to do, Shirley fumbled around in her purse and found her eyeglasses. "Sorry about this," Dolores spoke.